Welcome back. Today we're taking a look at the Xbox One X. The most powerful console in the world? Is it worth the £450/$500 price tag? Let's take a look. So tech spec out the way. I'm not a big spec head, I'm a casual gamer. Certainly this year I've been more of a Nintendo Switch person, but if you put me into a box and you were to say PlayStation or Xbox, I do tend to lean towards PlayStation, that's just my personal preference. But I thought it'd be interesting in looking at the Xbox One X from my perspective and just to see, is it worth that hefty price tag? So let's look at those tech specs. It has an 8-core CPU running at 2.3 GHz. It has 12 GB of GDDR5 RAM. It has an upgraded AMD Polaris GPU with 6 teraflops of power. Now, a lot of that probably goes over my head and maybe some of yours, but basically my understanding is it means that it's going to be able to power more 4K games natively. When compared to something like the PlayStation Pro, which also is a very, very powerful console, on paper at least, this puts this right at the top of the tree. So in terms of the design of the console itself, I'm a huge fan of what Microsoft has done with the design. So the console, as you can see, is a lot smaller compared to some of its compatriots. And the reason for that is because the actual power block that you used to get on previous designs is now within the console itself. So even though the form factor is a lot smaller, it's extremely heavy when compared to certain other consoles.
Lift with your lower back in a jerking, twisting motion. Ah!
Peter!
Oh my God! Call an ambulance!
As with other consoles as well, you can have it both vertically and horizontal. I tend to have it in the traditional horizontal format just because of where the placement is of the actual extractor fans. Now in terms of what you're greeted with on the console itself, on the front you have now a Xbox button rather than the capacitive button that was on the previous model. You also have your USB 3 ports just below that. You have your wireless controller connector button just in case you lose connection for those wireless controllers. Onto the far left hand side you then have the actual eject button, the IR sensor, and then you have the actual 4K Blu-ray player itself. So on the back, exactly the same ports that we had on the previous model on the Xbox One S, sorry. So exactly the same features there. So no changes on the rear. So I waited for the Project Scorpio version. I believe in terms of the colour it's pretty much exactly the same as the standard version. The reason I went for this one is because it's a limited edition and it seemed quite a nice touch just to go for that version. In terms of the controller itself, the controller tends to have again that same form factor and that same size of the previous Xbox generations, but also on the Project Scorpio version you have the nice green kind of motif on there with the Project Scorpio logo. So on to the gaming, and this is where the question should or should not be answered. Being the most powerful console in the world, being surrounded by that tagline of 4K gaming, this is where it wants to be, this is where the testament is. Now at the minute the list of 4K games is not huge, but expect that library to grow, especially in 2018. The game I'm going to showcase for you guys is Forza 7. I believe that's probably the best example of showcasing just what the Microsoft Xbox One X can do. And as you can see, from a visual standpoint, it is outstanding. The clarity, the colours, the shadows, the smoothness of the performance is really up there. And I had a blast of a time playing this game. I did also try some older games as well, even though they wouldn't improve from the graphical interface. I wanted to see if they would improve from a user experience, and some of them did. There was a noticeable difference in gameplay, just in terms of the performance and the fluidity of some of the games and how they ran. In terms of the Microsoft interface, it's very familiar in what we're used to, and if you've used an Xbox before, it won't be too dissimilar. It still has that clean look, you're still able to import some of your apps such as Netflix, YouTube, etc. And in terms of what you get from the console, it is very impressive. One thing to mention, even though you get a terabyte hard drive, game files are absolutely huge and you're liable to fill up that game storage very quickly. One suggestion would be to get an external hard drive which you can just plug in via the USB, and I'd probably suggest this if you're planning on having a lot of games stored. Yes, it's going to be an additional cost, but there's quite a few decent ones which I'll put in the link below. So overall, I've had a really enjoyable time using the Xbox, and I think it's an impressive console. Now, in terms of do I think it's worth it, I think that's going to boil down to a few different factors. I'm a casual gamer, so I think right now, probably not the most money savvy thing to do in terms of gaming consoles, especially when you can have so much enjoyment from a Nintendo Switch or previous generation models of either the Xbox or PlayStation. But I think where it will come into play is probably next year when A, the price comes down, so it appeals to more people, and B, when that catalogue of 4K games is improved. Is this going to win over PC gamers? Not too sure. I've not been a PC gamer myself, but for my friends who are PC gamers, I think they're firmly in that PC gaming camp and they probably won't switch. But who knows? Maybe with some of the new titles coming out next year, that might change. So that's it for my take on the Xbox One X. I think it's a fantastic console with a very, very steep price, and it's only going to appeal to hardcore Microsoft Xbox fans right now. Let me know what you think. Did you pick one up? Are you thinking about picking one up? Do you have any questions that you'd like answered? Put them in the comments below. My name's Darren, your host, Gadget Devo. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure you smash that like button. If you've loved it, make sure you subscribe. And if you want to keep up to date with what's coming next, make sure you hit that bell icon. Thanks for joining me as always. It's always been a pleasure. Peace.